I still remember that morning like it's burned into my bones. The air was sharp with salt from the ocean, the kind that makes the white tents on a lawn snap in the breeze. Everyone was there for some fancy charity breakfast. Newport, kind of fancy crystal flutes, silver trays, linen napkins, you'd be scared to even touch. And me, I was standing there in a deep emerald dress smiling like my life was picture perfect, while my husband was already loading the gun. Gregory Langston, yeah, that's his name, had the kind of grin that made people lean in like he knew something they didn't. I used to think it was charm. Now I know it was arrogance. He's standing there in his flawless white suit, surrounded by bankers, politicians, women in pearl chokers who probably never ate the pastries they pretended to love. I'd spent weeks planning the event, securing donors, calling every contact I had. But in that crowd, I was just Gregory's wife. And then right in the middle of my conversation with this young investor, Evan Brooks, a guy who actually wanted to hear about my education program, Gregory laughs. Loud, sharp. She's aged 10 years since I married her, he says. Like I'm not even there. Just standing around as decoration. I swear the champagne in my hand went colder. A ripple of chuckles moved through the crowd. Polite little knives dressed as laughter. And then his mother, Meredith. God, Meredith steps in with that syrupy poison she calls a voice. Look at that stiff hair like a librarian who missed her prime. Honestly, that dress adds another decade. More laughter. Pearls clinking. A man in a pinstripe suit actually slapped Gregory on the shoulder, like humiliating your wife in public was something to toast. I kept my eyes fixed on the horizon where the water met the sky, pretending I was somewhere else. Inside, I was burning so hot, it felt like my chest might split open. That's when Evan cut through it. I think you're mistaken, Greg. Age doesn't define talent, and from what I've heard, she's more than decoration. His voice wasn't loud, but it was steady. The laughter stumbled, turned into awkward throat clears. I looked at him, and in that split second, I knew I had a choice. Keep playing the silent ornament, or start tearing the wallpaper off the lie I'd been living. A few minutes later, the host of the event, a man with a politician's smile, asks if I'd like to say a few words about my project. Gregory leans in, whispering through his teeth. Keep it short. Don't make a fool of us. I handed him my glass like it was a dead weight and walked up to that stage. The mic was cold in my hand, but my voice came out clear. Today, I want to talk about a world where every child, no matter their origin, has the chance to learn to dream, to thrive. I told them about the girl in Brooklyn who wanted to be a doctor, about the $2 million we'd already raised, about the 15 schools ready to break ground. I saw faces shift from smirks to frowns to maybe respect. Gregory tried to laugh it off, toss, and a jab about me memorizing talking points. Meredith called me sweet, but hardly a leader. And that's when the part of me that had been buried for years kicked the door open. I have one more thing to share, I said, my voice steady enough to slice glass. My marriage to Gregory was never about love. It was a transaction to get his hands on my late father's shipping fortune. I'm filing for divorce. And I've hired attorneys to investigate the money he's been hiding offshore. The crowd inhaled all at once. I could hear someone's fork clatter onto a plate. Gregory's face went from pale to gray, his lips parting like he had something to say, but nothing came out. Meredith's pearls rattled in her hand. I didn't wait for applause or anger. I stepped off that stage and right through the gap the crowd made for me. 2 weeks later, I was in a tiny Brooklyn office with a second-hand desk and a whiteboard full of plans. Evan walked in with 2 foundation agreements under his arm. That's enough for 3 schools, he said. I just stared at him for a second because nobody in years had brought me news that good without expecting to own me for it. We hit the road after that Chicago-Atlanta Ghana. In each city, I spoke to parents, teachers, kids with eyes so bright you'd swear the whole world could fit in them. Evan had this way of standing back, letting me lead like he knew the strength was mine all along. One night in some hole-in-the-wall diner in Philly, I told him I spent years shrinking myself because Gregory made me believe my worth was tied to his name. Evan just leaned forward, meeting my eyes like it was the easiest truth in the world. He was wrong. You built this. Months later, we were in Ghana visiting a rural school. I knelt next to a little girl named Abena, who told me she wanted to be an engineer. Evan was behind me, camera in hand, and I heard him say softly, "This is why we're here." And in that moment, the Hamptons, the pearls, the cruel laughter, it all felt so small. A year after that, we were walking across the Brooklyn Bridge at sunset. Evan stopped halfway, pulled a small velvet box from his pocket, and said, "I'm not here because of wealth or status. I'm here because I love you, every part of you." I said yes before my brain even caught up to my mouth. We got married on a little farm upstate, wildflowers pie instead of cake, kids from our schools throwing petals like confetti. Gregory's empire was already ashes by then, federal agents picking over what was left after the laundering charges stuck. Meredith had vanished from the social scene she once ruled. And me, I was laughing under an arch of roses with a man who saw me, not my fortune. 2 years later, I was rocking our daughter on the porch, watching the leaves turn. 10 schools open, thousands of kids learning, and a home that didn't need marble floors to feel rich. Sometimes late at night, I think about that morning at the Hamptons, how I stood there in the shadow of a man who thought he owned me, and how one decision, one step forward, burned that shadow away. Tell me, if you'd been standing there hearing someone humiliate their partner like that, would you have stepped in like Evan did? Or would you have stayed quiet and let it slide? I want to hear the truth, because that's how we change what people think is just a joke.